The next presentation is an update regarding the Home Rule petition, Senate 1059, the city water system ownership. And to lead the discussion and open the presentation this evening, we'd like to have Senator Bruce Tarr take the podium, if you would, followed by Representative Ann Margaret Ferrante with comments from Who Decides. Senator Tarr.
Thank you, Madam President,
Welcome.
and through you to the members. And let me just first, by way of transition, thank the Council for the discussion that just happened. And I appreciate the leadership that the Council has shown, and I think it's very, very useful and critical. I am here actually with the pleasant mission of updating you on this legislation, and I'll just offer you a few editorial comments, and that is that our democracy depends on the ability of folks to identify an issue, conceive of a way to address the issue, and be able to move that through the legislative processes at the local and the state level. And this particular piece of legislation is an example of that. You had a group of citizens, largely the membership of Who Decides, who identified that while there may not be an imminent threat, there could very well be over time a serious threat to one of the most precious resources that any community could have, and that is its municipal water system. And by thoroughly researching the issue, they developed a rather straightforward safeguard to be able to prevent our water system from being arbitrarily or ill-advisedly sold or leased or otherwise alienated from the citizens of Gloucester. And so with that idea in hand and that very straightforward resolution to what could be a problem, they came to you and you took decisive action and asked us in turn to be able to move through the legislature a piece of legislation which simply said that the city charter would be amended to say that if the water supply was going to have any of those things, a sale or a lease, or I'll use the lawyerly term, any other kind of alienation, that it would have to go to the ballot and we would all be involved in that decision. And you wisely chose to approve that Home Rule petition and send it to us. We filed it in a timely way. It was subjected to a public hearing at the State House where we did have members of the community come and provide testimony about why this was important and why it was relevant and necessary. The committee was compelled by those remarks and that testimony and the advocacy of the City Council and the Mayor to report that bill as an ought to pass to the House and to the Senate. And Representative Ferrante and I were pleased to work with our colleagues to explain that the committee's report was sound and right, and that this was something important to be done. And bear in mind that in any given year, the legislature is considering as many as 6,000 different bills. And lots of times bills don't pass, not because they aren't good or because they don't represent a good idea, but just because they get lost in all of that paper filing and those stacks of paper. Well, in this case, the priority was clear. We were able to move it through the process. It was approved unanimously by the House and the Senate, ultimately found its way to the governor's desk, and the governor has signed the bill into law. And because the governor has signed the bill into law, people in this community can know that their water supply is protected by one of the most powerful tools that we know, and that is the power of democracy. And it got that protection through the power of democracy. And it's interesting that we think about the last discussion where sometimes we feel like things are out of our control, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't, and we just don't know it. In this case, they were within our control, from citizens to city council to state legislature, through the mayor to the governor, and into law. So I am delighted to report that through the good work of many in this hall tonight and some who aren't here, Gloucester has a bylaw which I think is a model for others and will be instrumental in giving us that kind of security against the loss or the jeopardization of that most precious resource of drinking water. So I would say on behalf of the entire legislative delegation, consisting of Representative Ferrante and myself, we would just want to say thank you. Thank you to the City Council, thank you to the Mayor, thank you to the group from Who Decides and from all the citizens that took the time to work with us and to believe that the legislative process could still work. Because sometimes when we read stories about what's happening in other legislative bodies or listen to the radio or watch television, we could get discouraged. And we could think that we don't have a role or that we can't get anything done. Well, this proves that we all have a role. We can get something done. And when the group asked the question, who decides? It's pretty clear. We still decide. And so I'm pleased to provide you with the update. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but again would conclude with an expression of deep, deep appreciation to the members of this organization who decides, to the citizens that have worked on this, to the council, to the mayor, and even though they aren't here tonight, to all of our legislative colleagues and to the governor for following what is a pretty clear line of direct action from a citizen request all the way into a law, a special act of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And so that the council can thank you all equally, I'd like to ask Representative Ann Margaret Ferrante if she'd like to come up to the microphone for a moment, followed by a member or two of Who Decides. Thank you.
I'm going to make a prediction tonight. Can everybody hear me? I'm going to make a prediction tonight that the petition that started with Who Decides, over to the council, over to the mayor, over to Senator Tornai, and on to the governor's desk. My prediction is going to be that that single piece of legislation is going to be a model. And it's going to be a model for other communities to adopt, and probably eventually a model for other states to adopt when communities catch on to what is happening to some of their public resources. And the other side of it, and the other part of it that should be a model, is how a group of citizens could identify a need, come together, and make a decision to bring something forward to the city. And then the council, the mayor, and a group of citizens could actually work together to draft an ordinance. And then could work together enough to bring it to the state delegation, where a Republican and a Democrat could work together in order to get it passed in both bodies that we represent, and then put it on a governor's desk and have it signed into law. So I want to commend the group Who Decides, and I want to commend every elected official along the way for working together because, as it's been pointed out, there are 6,000 bills. Roz and I had to have a conversation about the reality of how long it could actually take a home rule petition to move its way through the legislature, because if you figure just in the House alone, there's 160 of us, times on average about 4 home rule petitions per rep. You're looking at, just in terms of home rule petitions, 500 to 600 bills that all need a turn to move. But because everybody from the citizen all the way up to the governor were able to work together in that path, we were able to pass it in record-breaking time. So thank you for the experience of having worked on such an important ordinance. Thank you to the City Council and to the Mayor for your cooperation on it, to my legislative counterpart, Bruce, and as he said, our colleagues and the Governor.
Thank you, Representative Ferrante. And now we'll recognize Russell Hobbs, one of the founding members of Who Decides.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. For people who don't know what Who Decides is a nonpartisan group that formed after we heard about a multinational corporation coming to the city of Gloucester, came to the mayor's office and wanted to buy our water. When we heard about that, we were shocked. Wanting to buy our water supplies? Those belong to the people. So first of all, I'd like to thank those 2 gentlemen who came into the mayor's office, because it opened up our eyes. It made us realize that there's something going on in this world that we should all look into. And we did. This group looked into deeply what was going on. So I want to thank them for giving us the heads up. Then to the mayor, Mayor Carolyn Kirk, thank you. You were wise enough to say no. Thank you very much. Now to the City Council. The City Council, I know you were a little nervous when we first came around because of other issues with water, but we were able to convince you what the real issue was. And we drafted an ordinance that you put in place with a unanimous vote. And that ordinance was the first step to hold in place control of our water supply. And then we asked about a home rule petition. And you drafted that home rule petition. I believe, Councilor Tolby, you had your hand in drafting that language. I appreciate that. Thank you. And Councilor Hardy, thank you for helping Bruce with that. And I want to thank all these councilors personally. I respect you very much for what you did. You did an incredible job. You listened to the people, and that's what it's about. You've put in place that no mayor or city council, future or present, can take away our rights to that water without our approval. And that is very important for democracy. It is our right. It is a human right. It is our right to that water. Senator Tarr, thank you. You did a tremendous job pushing that S-1059 forward in a short period of time. I appreciate everything that you've done for the city of Gloucester. Thank you. Representative Ferrante, you can view it on tape. Thank you for working with Bruce on this very important issue. Thank you very much. We have a good friend with us tonight. And this person comes from Bonstead, New Hampshire. Her name is Gail Darrell. She's sitting over there. Put up your hand, Gail. To have this woman, a friend of Gloucester, is very important. She's part of the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, which is stationed in Pennsylvania. Gail lives in Bonstead, New Hampshire. And she has helped us realize what democracy is. She stood by us. She drove down here, stayed overnight many times, and had meetings with us. She brought democracy school to Gloucester, which I attended. And it changed my whole outlook. And I've talked to Councilor Hardy about this. It changed my whole outlook on how I deal with things and how I look at city councilors and mayors and senators and representatives, and how I speak and how I change my attitude. So it was very important to me. And Gail, I want to thank you. You're a great friend. The citizens of Gloucester who supported us, who didn't turn away. And there were many, many businesses who supported us. And they were documented in one of the films that we made. It was very important to get the citizens behind us. We educated them. We let them know what the threat was, and they agreed. Thank you, citizens of Gloucester. All the members of Who Decides, you worked really hard. It was a long, long haul. There was a lot to learn, a lot to understand. Research on these multinational corporations, on what they're doing around the world and what they're doing in our country and what they're doing in our backyard. This group formed after that surprise visit to the mayor's office. You did a wonderful job. Thank you. And to Roz Frontera, my good friend. She kept us going. She's the backbone right there. She pushed us and pushed us and pushed us and had meetings and kept the meetings going and kept on the agenda. Roz, you're the champion. Trust me, you're the champion. Last but not least, Council President Jackie Hardy, you are unwavering in your support for us and on the water issues. That shows what a leader you are. Sitting in the Council President's seat, you deserve that seat. And I thank you, and we thank you from Who Decides. You've done a tremendous job, and I hope that continues. Thank you.
Before I recognize Roz, who is the founding leader of Who Decides, thank you for those wonderful comments, Russell. I just want you to know that this city council works as a team. So the entire city council deserves all that credit. I thank my fellow city councilors. We've tackled some very tough issues. We've had some tough presentations up here, from chloramines to dog parks and some water issues and sewer issues. It's teamwork. We all work together. We may not all agree all of the time, but because of the teamwork and the debate that we have at these council meetings, we hope that we're making the city a better place to live. Thank you. Roz, would you like to come up, please?
I'll try to make it as brief as possible. I, too, want to thank everybody on the City Council, especially Councilor Harding, for her unwavering support and ongoing support, because there's more to do. And I'm here to make a special announcement tonight about what is remaining on our plate, which is tremendous. But before I do that, I just want to recognize that civic pride is alive tonight here in Gloucester with Peggy O'Malley's group bringing forward to us the awesome responsibility of trying to keep our hospital alive. That's what happens when corporations come into a community and try to privatize all of your services. I can honestly tell you that water is far more valuable than oil. So can you imagine sitting on the city council trying to negotiate with the water companies